morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson, and today you guys are in for a treat because you got a double trouble episode full of Wilsons today. So myself, Tracy Wilson, and the amazing Pamela Wilson joining me this morning all the way from Nashville, Tennessee in the United States. But I've got a couple of questions before we kick off with today's episode. And I want to ask you this. Have you guys seen all over the internet posts and discussions? They're on like social media and people talking about it, and they say you've got to hustle, hustle, hustle until you succeed. You've got to work your backside off, working as many hours as you possibly can until you actually hit the big time or you become successful in business. Now, when you just stop and you think about that for a moment, how does that actually make you feel? When I think about it, it makes me feel like, oh my God, that sounds so tiring. Like, is there not another way? Well, let me tell you that there absolutely is. And my guest today is going to share with you there is a different way. There is a much kinder way to actually succeed in business with less effort, whilst building something that actually, fuels your heart, your mind, your bank account, and your life. And if you are somebody like her and I who, mid career, we're going to say, but you've clocked up a ton of skills, a ton of experience over the last few decades. And that skill and experience is exactly what you need to actually become successful and to create something that creates ongoing revenue that enables you to live your life the way that you want. Pamela has actually been rewriting the whole scenario around, hey, go and create a $17 offer, low ticket offer to grow your audience. What she's saying today is that idea of hustle, hustle, hustle mentality and creating something that's low ticket is actually terrible advice. And if you continue to tune into today's show, we will explain to you why that is a bad idea and what you need to do instead. So without further ado, let me welcome my other amazing Wilson to today's show.
It is a double Wilson episode. How often does that happen, right? I think if I make a V and you make a
good
V,
one then, right?
You can make a V over there.
Yeah,
I can
well,
make a V over here. There we go. We have a W. There we go. So yeah, I am delighted to be here. I'm so happy that you invited me. And this is one of my favorite topics. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. I can get a little ranty. I just want to warn you, I can start ranting a little bit, but I'll try to keep it under control. So.
Well, that often happens when we're talking about something that we're so passionate about, right? So, hopefully everybody that's tuning in today is just as passionate about this particular subject as you and I are. So I want everybody to know that this is live right now. So if you would like to comment or you would like to ask questions of both Pamela and I, then just, type into the comment section on Facebook or YouTube or wherever it happens, wherever you are, and make sure that you let StreamYard know that you are there so that we actually get the comments here in the studio. So if we're not responding to you, it's not because we're ignoring you, it's because they're not coming through to us in the studio. You need to make sure that you let StreamYard know that you want them to come through to us. So let's kind of backpedal a little bit, Pamela, because I know you and I have got very similar, I'm going to say, backgrounds. We got to sort of that mid-career. And it was like, okay, I want to do something a little bit different. So let's fill everybody in on a little bit of your journey and how you've come to be doing what you're doing today.
I am celebrating my 30th year in business this year. I started back in 1992, so 30 years. And when I started, I had an offline business. I had an agency, a design and marketing studio. And I did that for 20 years or so. And then I switched to an online business in 2010. So I've kind of been in the online space for about 12 years. And so many things were surprising to me about the online space. Did you find that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, with my background, I was in a corporate world. So, shifting out of that and moving into this sort of space was like, oh my God, it's like a completely different world in a lot of ways.
It's almost like there's a whole new set of rules that you have to learn, right? And what I did, and what I think a lot of people do, is they sort of learn this set of rules that doesn't serve them that well. At the beginning, they end up doing what you were saying. They're hustling nonstop, because what they're told is take your expertise that you have worked your whole life to acquire, put it into a very accessible, inexpensive package like a $17 offer or a $97 offer, and sell it on the internet. And if you want to make a good living, what you have to do is build a huge audience so that a small percentage of those people will purchase your inexpensive offer. And what that ends up doing is it puts you in a situation where you are just having to build an audience all the time. And as you know, that's not easy and that takes time. And in the meantime, you have this offer that doesn't cost that much. And so it's almost an impossible scenario. And I realized after a while that that advice was not serving people well. And there's another piece of advice we should probably cover as well that I see all the time. And that's this idea that you have to build a platform and fill it with content. And that sounds very strange coming from me because I wrote 2 books on content marketing, and I'm sort of known for this topic of content marketing. But what happens is people have this idea, okay, well, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to start blogging. And they start doing all those things. And it's a lot of work, as you know, feels a lot like a job, right? And so people start producing all this content and producing all this content, and they never sort of figure out like, okay, how am I going to earn money from this, right? And I see people devoting years sometimes either trying to build an audience or just creating all of this content without ever really having figured out how to earn revenue from their businesses. And I see that happen in the online space so much more than you would ever see it in the offline space. I mean, you don't see people, renting a storefront and never filling it with products to sell, right? That doesn't happen in the offline space. But in the online space, it happens all the time. And that's one of the reasons that I do what I do, because I saw it so often that I just, I was actually coaching people who were creating content and they were so puzzled about why they didn't have revenue coming into their business. So I sort of felt like, okay, I need to do something to help this situation.
So it's almost flipping a lot of what's talked about on its head and bringing in, really thinking about in the business space, because we're talking about business. It doesn't matter whether it's offline or online. You create a business to make money. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, it's you've created a charity or you've created
an expensive hobby, right?
yeah. And we often don't really, our intention is I'm going to create a business, but we inadvertently end up creating this expensive hobby. So what you're saying is, let's think about this in the sense that if I were going to create a offline business, I was going to go and open up a store down the road, which is the same as what you'd be doing if you were creating your website or creating, any type of online. You want to think about that as being your store. And now what am I actually going to put in that store to sell? And I could sell a whole lot of, small items and have to bring in a whole lot of customers to make, some money. Or I could think about, well, I could have some bigger ticket items, and therefore I don't have to sell as many and with less effort to be able to make more, be able to bring in more revenue and have more, money in my pocket at the end of the day. So
I have to say, I love that you took this analogy and ran with it because if you really continue this analogy and you really think about it, you could have 2 customers a week come in and buy one of your luxury items, and that's all you would have to sell, right? And then you have enough money to keep your store open. And imagine the care and attention and personal interaction that those 2 customers will have from you compared to the 200 that need to come in to buy your low-cost item. That is the analogy. It's the perfect analogy. If you really take it all the way through to a storefront, it's a great way to think about it.
And if you were to take that even further, like now that we're thinking about that, and I'm thinking about, as I'm driving around the Gold Coast, you've got used car yards, which have got a lot of, smaller, not as expensive vehicles in them. They have to have a lot of people in them, lots of staff to try and manage them. Yet I drive down Ferry Road, which is just up the road from me, which has got the Maserati dealership on it. You very rarely see many people in there. And for that very reason, they only
Right.
need to have one or two people, possibly even a month, to make what another car dealership would make in an entire year. So I think that's a fantastic way of looking at things. So when you realize this, I'm sure when you first started out, you were doing all the things, the blogging, the podcasting, the trying to create an audience, trying to create content, because like you say, you were and have become really well known and have traveled the world helping people create content, because there was a time where there was this concept, content is king. You've got to create loads and loads of content. So when was it that you realized, oh my gosh, I've got to make a transition. I've got to transform something here, because what I'm doing right now is not really getting the results that I had anticipated.
To be honest, it was more that I worked for a business called Copy Blogger, and Copy Blogger at the time that I was working for that business was an industry leader on the topic of content marketing. And I was executive vice president of educational content. So I was helping to manage the blog and helping to manage their educational community. And they had a big group of members that were turning to that company to understand how to run an online business. And I was there coaching them. I was one of the people coaching them. And over the years, I just kept seeing these people who were mid-career, had genuine expertise, had either followed a career or a passion or, gone deep on a topic. So they were truly experts. And they just got stuck creating content and never really figured out how to actually make real money from their business. Money that, could replace the money they were making in their careers, for example. So it was kind of a feeling like I'm not serving people well if I don't help them to focus on how to really run it as a business. So it was that feeling like I have to do the right thing here, And
Yeah.
on a smaller scale, it was my own audience. The Copy Blogger audience was millions of people. So that was a huge audience. My own audience on my own website, I was seeing the same phenomena. Super smart people. I end up coaching a lot of people who have doctorates and very advanced
Mhm.
degrees. And so it's not a lack of intelligence, and it's clearly not a lack of hard work, because they're smart and they're working hard, but they just weren't making money. And so I sort of felt like I got to help people figure this out, and I had a process for developing offers that I had been using internally in my own business. And I just decided to put that into a system that I could teach people. So that's kind of where it all came from.
So after seeing this and you realizing, oh my gosh, this is a phenomena. I'm seeing this happen over and over again. I've got super smart people that I'm working with. It's not through lack of skills or their experience. What was the missing ingredient? Like, what was the thing that, and we know it's, to do with monetization, but what was it that they were missing in their equation that wasn't giving them the results that they were looking for?
You know what they were missing? They were missing an offer. And
Mm.
that is what I help people to do now, is to create offers that are based on their hard-earned expertise. Offers that they can turn around and sell to an audience. It doesn't have to be a big audience. But what I teach them to create is what I call high value offers. A lot of people talk about high ticket. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't use that term, because I feel like when we talk about high ticket, we're really talking about us, high ticket. I'm going
Yeah.
to charge you a lot of money for this offer. And that's not what it's about. It's really about high value. It's about delivering an offer that delivers so much value to the person that you're helping with this offer, the person you're serving, that it's valuable in both ways. It's valuable to you because, yes, they pay a higher amount than these low ticket offers, but it's truly valuable to them as well. So I use that high value language. That's really important to me when I talk about offer creation. And that's what I'm helping people to do now, is to take this expertise and put it into a test version of an offer that they can test in less than 30 days to see what kind of feedback they get on it.
So if we were to think about that particular process, because, taking, say, somebody who has got, 3 decades worth of experience, and they're in this, this mid-career phase where they've got all of that experience, they've got all the knowledge in there. How do they distill that down into creating an offer that is full of value for them and for their audience that they're working with? How does somebody take that? How do they recognize the elements of their past and their career and their skills that they have, and actually package that up into something that is desirable and valuable to others?
I'm so glad you asked, because guess what? I have a process. And I would love to tell you how it works. So it's a few steps that I take people through. And the first thing that we do is it's market research. Now, I call it market exploration because we try to make it fun. It's like you go on an expedition to find information about the customer that you want to serve. What I have found is that it's very easy to find information about what your customers need. You just sort of need to know where to look. So that's something that we work on live and we work on together, so that people can really feel confident that they understand the market that they're entering. They sort of understand what the customers need, what they're struggling with. They actually get the language that the customers are using to speak about their struggles, and that can be really inspiring to see the voice of the customer saying, I need a solution for this. And there are ways that you can find that on the internet, and it's not that difficult. So that's something that we do very early on, is we help people to explore the market that they want to enter so that they can go in with their eyes wide open. It's really important to do that. And then I help people to identify two things. I help them to spend some time thinking about what their personal values are. And that's because at this point in our lives, we all have values. We've developed values, things that are meaningful to us. And we want to make sure that whatever offer we develop is a reflection of those values. We want it to sort of represent us out in the world, right? And the bonus part of doing that, of identifying your values, is because you are really imbuing that offer with your personal values, that your offer is not going to look like anyone else's offer. It's going to be very unique to you because you have really thought through your values. And then the other thing that we do, the second thing, is we identify, and you said it, Tracy, we identify your current skill set. And what I mean by that is, for example, I don't know enough about you to know if this isn't true, but let's say that you come to me and you say, I want to build an offer around, I want to build an offer that is about helping people to run marathons, and I just have to learn to run a marathon first, and then I'm going to build that offer, right? Now, you might run marathons, I don't know, but let's just assume you don't, and you come to me saying you want to build this offer, and it's based on this skill set that you haven't yet developed, right? And so that's never a good idea. And the analogy of that in the online space is people will want to develop, they'll have seen an offer, let's say, that's a bunch of videos, but they've never done video in their lives. Well, you should not develop an offer that involves you having to learn how to create video if you've never done video. On the other hand, maybe you are great presenting live. Maybe you have no problem delivering live workshops, or maybe you are a great writer. So that's why we take some time to sort of look at what your current skill set is, and we build an offer around your current skills so that you don't have to go out and master this whole new thing that you've never done before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Just for the record, I'd love to run a marathon, but sadly, I am not a marathon runner. I'm
Me
happy to stand
neither.
at the finish line and clap people over the finish line, which I did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm a
But
good
no,
cheerleader,
running a
but yeah,
marathon,
I feel the same way.
not so good
I
at.
feel the same
But
way.
but
Yeah.
in saying that, that makes a whole lot of sense, right? Because the hustle mentality of, and that's where a lot of that comes from, is okay, now I've got to learn this and I've got to learn that and I've got to learn
Yes.
that, and oh my goodness, I just don't know, I just don't know where to start. Whereas with this very, I call it the kind way of kind to ourselves in a lot of ways,
Yes.
because we're recognizing the skill or the experience, the knowledge that we already have. And we're saying, okay, now how can we take that and allow this to just become easy and flow without the hustle and without the grind? So that makes a whole lot of sense. And I totally agree with you in terms of understanding what our values are, because I personally think that that is one of the most important things. And I too have seen the mistakes that people make in terms of going to create businesses, particularly in the online space, that are in direct conflict with their actual values, and then they wonder why they don't work. So those two steps are, in my opinion, vitally important, particularly doing your research. Again, if you're not doing that research, you're not really understanding the voice of the customer. And I think also with what you're talking about, which lends itself really nicely into the space that you've come from, which is that content creation, and we understand the voice of the customer, you now can use those words, the words of your
Exactly.
customer, in
Yes.
everything you do, right? Yeah. And I know that's kind of, obviously that's part of your process, and being a blogger and a writer over many, many years, is that we need to be really resonating with that audience, and that's the way in which we do it. So as far as like creating those two things, and then recognizing that now I've got I've done this, I've recognized what my values are, I now understand the skills that I have, I've done a bit of research with my customer, and now I can sort of pick the components that are relevant. Now I'm going
Right.
to wrap into
There's
a
there are
high
a couple
value
more
offer.
there are a couple more steps. You want me to share them with
Yeah,
you?
please.
Yeah, because
Yeah, let's do it.
it doesn't stop there. So once we've identified those things, then the next thing that we do is we create a test version of your offer. And this is in the software space, it's known as a minimum viable product. But what it is it is a version of your offer that will deliver the same transformation that you want to deliver with the dream version of your offer, the ultimate, super elaborate version of your offer that you might be thinking about, but you deliver it in a very low key way. So you might deliver it over Zoom and just, coach a handful of customers to do this thing that you want to help them with, right? You just keep it very low key. And then what we do is we create that test version and you put it in front of customers, and all of in the program that I run, this all happens within the first 30 days. So you go from the idea that you are looking to explore to having a test version that you are selling in less than 30 days. And the beautiful thing that happens is that once you actually start working with that small handful of customers, you start getting what you said. You start getting feedback. You start hearing from them about what they enjoyed, what was super helpful. You also start finding out what was confusing or what they need more information about. And that helps your offer become so much stronger, because then it's based on what they need rather than on
Mm,
what you think they need, which isn't always accurate, right? Because as experts, we don't always remember what it was like to be a beginner in our topic area, right? So, really working with customers one on one and face to face can be super informative. So, that's why I try to really encourage people, like, don't overthink this, don't make it real fancy, just get it in front of people and let's start working with customers right away. And it also helps people to like step away from being too perfectionist about things, which I think a lot of times by mid-career, a lot of us know what something looks like when it's well done, and we're just very focused on making sure that everything we do is perfect. But that can actually stop you from making progress. So we just try to hit the ground running, get something out there as soon as possible so you can start getting feedback from customers quickly.
Absolutely, and therefore the whole process, you're starting to bring the participant or bring your customer into that process, and it becomes participant and customer driven, and then you're able to add, as you say, based on the feedback and the response that you're actually getting from your audience. And I love the fact that, you know, being able to do this in 30 days, in a short space of time, from concept right the way through to actually testing your offer. And before you go ahead and create, you know, months and months and months of work creating something fantastic, you've actually already tested everything. Often we would hear those terminologies. I just want to, you know, anybody who's new to this, that is listening to the show today, MVP, you'll hear that, minimum viable product. You'll also hear beta test is another terminology that you might hear other people talking about when they're speaking of the type of concept that Pamela's talking about today, and testing it, doing a beta group, beta testing before you actually go ahead and build the real McCoy. So the next step.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting that you said beta testing, because I actually encourage people in my program not to say beta testers, because it sounds like the offer won't really work, right? And so there are actually terms that you can use that will make your customers feel excited to participate in the first time that you release this product. You can call them founding members. You can tell them they are going to be part of a pilot program. You can call them the charter member group or something like that, right? And so there are ways to do a beta test where you're not really calling it that, because I don't think that always helps you to call it that, right? But there are a particular group of customers that get very excited to participate in this way with you when you're an expert. So you want to appeal to those people and try to get them on board for your offer test.
I'm glad that you've mentioned this, because, you know, those terminologies are spoken about often in the online world, and not always given, you know, an explanation like you've just given there. So internally, we might say it's a test, it's a beta test, it's a, you know, your first time offer. But like you say, externally, when we're talking to our potential clients, founding members, you know, calling them a particular, giving them a name makes them feel like there's some real value and reason why I should join right now. And in my opinion, if you can get on board with somebody who is an expert, but maybe is doing something that has a founding membership, or is, you know, the first time they're doing it, in my experience, you tend to get like a phenomenal amount of support, because there's less people in the group. So personally, I really love working with people who are creating their, you know, their very first offers to get themselves going, because of that. They're so invested in making sure that you get an amazing transformational experience. So once you've done that, you know, and we're talking about creating, you know, then getting to a point where we're able to create some consistent revenue. So I know that there's probably more steps to this process, and if there is, would you like to explain what the other steps in the process are?
It's interesting, because the first month in my program is the one that is the most sort of concrete. We go through that testing program, and then the program is 6 months long. So the other 5 months really are kind of a response to what happened in that first month. If you put your offer out there, you get your founding members, or you get your charter members, or your pilot program members, and it goes really well, and you decide, okay, this is great. I have enough data to make me feel confident that I'm going to really develop this offer. I'm there to help you. We are there, and the curriculum is there to help you and coach you through creating sort of the more advanced version of your offer, the one that does have all the bells and whistles, like we say in the US, right? If you run your offer test, and I always ask my members to sort of set a goal for how many sales they'll decide ahead of time, like how many sales will I consider to be a win, and how many sales will make me feel like I need to look at a different idea, right? And I always congratulate people no matter what happens. If your offer doesn't sell the way you want it to, congratulations, because you did something very difficult. First of all, you put yourself out there and it didn't work. But guess what? You have so much more information than you did before you even tried, right? So either way, you're winning because you have a lot more data than you did before you started, right? So you get your data, you decide either I'm going to pursue this and develop it. And at that point, we're helping people to create more elaborate versions of their offers. I'm kind of a processes and systems person. So I'll help people optimize their processes so everything flows well. I'll help them set up a marketing system so that their offer can be marketed. Some people, though, test an offer and they come back and it didn't do well, right? And so then they need to go back and kind of go through that process again, like, okay, let's go back and do the market research again and see what we find. Maybe there's something we missed, and let's go through the values and the strengths and how can we build something that serves people a little bit differently and uses your same expertise. So that is also something that happens. We go back to the drawing board, as they say, and we start again and work through the process. So either one is a perfectly fine outcome.
And the beautiful thing about that is that, as they're building it, as you're doing your charter or your founding membership, you're actually getting paid to create that, right?
Yes.
So that's a beautiful thing. So in terms of being able to speed up your opportunity to be able to actually turn from a hobby into an actual fully fledged business, that time frame has really been reduced because you're building it as you go. And I think there's a real benefit in doing it that way, because we covered that in terms of being able to allow it to be participant driven. So when you're putting these things together, what are some of the the pitfalls or the challenges that a lot of people face? I know I don't. How do you handle the technology side of things?
One thing I should explain, because it may not be clear, and I know this is a little bit unusual in the online space, but a lot of people have programs where they teach you how to create a thing, right? So you take maybe a program that's it's all about creating courses, or you take a program that's about starting a podcast business or something like that. And my offer accelerator, I don't have any like on the shelf solution that I take out and sell to everyone. What I like to say to people is I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in the marketing space for 35 years at this point, had an online business for 12. I have a massive toolkit. It's this big. It's huge, right? And so there are so many different ways that we could put together an offer that will reflect your values, use your skill set, and serve your audience. It might be a course. It might be a coaching program. It might be a membership site. It might be a service. I have people in my program that are creating high ticket services. I can help with that too, because I had a service-based business as well. So it's not, the tech issues are very dependent on whatever it is they're creating. And at the level of a customer that I'm helping, usually they've got a lot of tech savvy because they figured things out on their own, or they have somebody who can help them with the techie part because that's not their zone of genius, and they have somebody who can help them. So I don't tend to see a lot of tech problems, actually.
Which is fantastic. And the fact that, and you're right, there is no, you can create cookie cutter approaches. But again, in your experience and also in mine, is that they tend not to go particularly well, because every person is different in the way in which they, when you're really truly bringing this back to your values, the type of business that you want to create, how it's going to fit into your lifestyle, what your vision is. Everybody is different. And if you simply give them a cookie cutter approach, you tend to find that one size doesn't fit all. So
it's like one size fits all blue jeans or something, right? That would not work.
So in terms of that, when you're helping somebody put together their premium high value offer, what sort of things do they tend to have in them? Because I think this is where a lot of confusion comes in. People think, particularly if they're starting out or they're relatively new to the space, they think, oh, I've got to go and create a course or some kind of online program that just does this.
Yes.
What sort of things would you recommend people put into an offer that creates a lot of value? What are the
Yeah.
things that are really valuable?
So it's interesting because I think probably most people hearing that question expect me to talk about how many videos it should have, or how many worksheets, or how many modules, or how many lessons. And it's not about that at all. The way that I coach people to do this is we start by identifying the transformation that you are going to deliver to your audience. And I always ask people, I really push them to figure out what I call, I ask them to figure out what their true transformation will be. So this is not just, I'm going to help people to know more about this, right? It's more like I'm going to change their lives in this way. They're going to have the life they had before, and then they'll have the life after. And they're going to be able to do things or live life in a certain way or experience things in a way that is different than how it was before. And everything we do is based on that. Like, if you don't get that piece right, it doesn't matter how many modules or lessons or videos or audio that you throw at the topic. If you haven't figured out the transformation that you're going to deliver to people, none of that matters, right? So once you've really figured that out, and you figured out how to talk about it, because this is what people are actually buying. So you have to figure out a way to describe it that people will understand, right? And all of that is what we're working on in that first month, because in order for you to put that test version of your offer out, even though it's a very basic offer, it is still offering that transformation. So you start figuring out how to talk about that transformation from the very beginning. And that's something you just get better at over time as you talk to customers, you see what resonates with them, you hear their questions, and you adapt your messaging. So we start with the transformation, and then again, we go back and we pull from that skill set that you have, those values that you have, and we put it together. This is kind of the alchemy part. So there's not there's not an off the shelf way that I teach this. It's very individual with each. This is why I don't work with that many people at once, because it's very dependent on the person, their audience, their values, and their strengths. Sometimes it ends up looking like a coaching program. Sometimes it ends up looking like a high value service. I'll give you two examples of people who are in the program now. There's somebody in the program, she actually just graduated, but she joined with a $17 offer, and she was a home organizer. So she was selling this $17 home organizing checklist to homeowners, to women, oftentimes women with small children, and they would buy this $17 home organizing checklist to help keep their kitchens organized and things like that. And I kept working with her throughout the program and trying to encourage her to think about what other audience she could work with and what she could offer that would be of much more value. By the time she graduated from the program, she wasn't teaching homeowners anymore. She was actually teaching people who wanted to become home organizers like her. And she was teaching them to become luxury home organizers. So people who are home organizers for luxury homes and get paid a lot more money. And her product is $20,000. So she, went from this little tiny thing to this massive product. So that's one example. And then I have another example of somebody who is an Israeli circus artist. She is a very well-known circus artist in Israel, very well-known in her field, very well respected. And when she came into my program, she wanted to develop an offer for circus artists. And she tested something, But circus artists don't have a lot of money to spend, right? And they don't really have a pressing problem that you could create a high value offer around. So we kept working on it and we kept working on it. And now what she is working on it, she's still in the program, so she's still working on this, but the offer she has now is to help executives like CEOs better harness the power of their personal creativity in their work and in their spaces, in their office spaces. And she's kind of an expert on creativity coming from the circus world, right? And she has a lot of respect. So she is packaging that up and putting it into the corporate space. I mean, yeah, and those two examples are nothing alike. And that's why I always tell people, like, bring me whatever strange combination of skills you have and we will figure it out.
Yeah, and I suppose once you think about that, you're going back to the values, looking at their skill set, and then you're overlaying, doing the research, and then you're saying, okay, now who's an audience that we could go to? How can I find this sweet spot between what you want to do, the skills that you have, that now let's look at the audience that you could attract to do this? Because like you say, with those couple of examples, they absolutely could have taken what they did in the early days, right? Take what they knew, what their skills, their experience, and they focused on a particular audience. Now we shift that audience to a different audience that's got, I'm going to say, can pay, is willing to pay for your service, because I think those two things are really, really important. No point, sort of coming up with an offer for people who can't afford it. So now we're shifting, we're looking at a completely different audience and taking that product and giving it to them in a way that transforms, like you say, transforms where they are right now, giving them a different way of looking at things and giving them now a skill set that they can, that is in the audience, the skill set to be able to transform their life and continuously do it over and over and over again. And I love that. And I think that's so important, with rather than just buying an off the shelf course or product that gives you a tactic for this one time, one moment in time, you're actually teaching people a skill that enables them to transform their life completely.
Well, and yes, my clients end up teaching their customers a skill that transforms their lives, but I like to think that my program also teaches them a skill, because they're learning a process for creating offers. They're discovering how they can do that alchemy and combine all of those elements with the audience, like you said, and come up with an offer. And yes, they do it with me inside the program, but they can do it again in 6 months or a year and a half down the road. They will know how to do it. And I'm very proud of that. I mean, I like to think that this is something that transforms them as business people, because they have this incredibly valuable skill that will serve their businesses and help them generate revenue, hopefully for decades.
Absolutely. And you're totally on point. It's not just the transformation that they give to their clients, but often when you're working with someone, they also get that level of transformation too. And why wouldn't they? I mean, that's the entire process, right? Like the crux of what you're doing is, how do I get that person, whether it's the person I'm working with, whether it's the people they are working with, it goes down the line, and it is all about transferring of that skill so they could do it over and over again. That provides them with a true transformation for their life. And once you understand that, once we can understand what is the transformation, what is my client or the person I'm going to work with, what are they aspiring to be like, to have, to do, what are their aspirations, and then working our way back from there. And I absolutely love that. I know that over time you've done a number of different things, like we said, working with copy blogger, and going around the world, speaking on many stages and sharing your expertise and your knowledge, and then even in times gone past, having your own podcast, creating these high value offers, and teaching people the skill of being able to create an offer over and over and over again. Because once they learn that skill, right, they're then able to see opportunities that come their way and think about, Now, how can I take what I've learned? How can I take that skill set that I now have and and now recreate that and maybe in a different market? So, what are some of the things that you're seeing your clients be able to do? Maybe there are some people that have done this once and then have utilized that skill set and are now doing it in different areas. Do you tend to see that often?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I see people who, it's interesting how success looks different for everyone, right? So there are people who have turned around and created these super high value offers. There are other people who have left the program and told me, I didn't end up creating the high value offer, but I have such clarity about what I need to do going forward. So maybe they didn't. And I mean, I like to be honest and say, yes, there are these people who have these very, you know, sexy stories that are fun to share. But then there are other people who they're incredibly grateful and they don't have a high ticket offer, but they understand how to run their business better. And that's
Yeah.
fine as well, right? It's all about building skills. And I think the one thing that I see across the board, no matter, there are a lot of ways in which my clients are not similar to each other. But the one thing that I see across the board is increased confidence.
Oh,
They
yeah.
they leave like with their shoulders back, feeling like, okay, they are ready to go forward, even if they don't go forward with a high ticket offer or a high value offer like they thought they wanted when they came in. They have skills that they didn't have. So the majority of them come away with some kind of offer created or a service, that they've developed that they didn't have before. But yeah, there have been a couple of people who just they felt really good that they got confidence and general skills. And that's fine
And
too.
absolutely, and I think often we don't always put a huge amount of value on realizing that we're a lot more confident in the way in which we're doing something, and that is a huge value to be able to walk away from something like you say with your shoulders back, your head held high, realizing that hey, I've got a bit more confidence up my on my feathers in my cap, and I'm able to move forward and be able to make decisions really confidently and competently. And I'm able now to have a level of discernment around my business that maybe I never had before. So I think that is a huge value when somebody can walk away with that. So in terms of give everybody a bit of when we talk about high value offers, and I know we're talking about the value that we give to somebody and the transformation that we can provide. Now, let's talk about sort of the pricing of that. What do you generally tend to see? And I know, again, how long's a piece of string? It can be
Right.
all sorts of prices, but what generally speaking would be sort of the price that somebody could command for a premium valued offer?
My goal for we've talked around my program and I don't think we've named it. My program is called the Offer Accelerator. And my goal for that program is to help people to develop an offer that generates 10 to 20,000 US dollars a month in revenue. And I don't teach like running ads or things like that. So the majority of that revenue is revenue that you bring in and you keep in your business. Um, so that can happen a lot of different ways. You could be like my client and develop a single $20,000 offer that you only have to sell one a month and you're good, right?
Mhm.
Or you could develop a $5,000 offer and sell four, you know. But that's really what we're looking at is offers that deliver so much transformation that you are able to attract people who are ready to invest. So we're looking at 5, 10, 15, $20,000 offers generally. Not right out of the gate. That's not your test offer. That's not what you start with, but that's what my goal is for you going into the program, that you walk away with an offer that's at that level.
And guys, we'll make sure that in the show notes for today, and we'll also pop up on the screen very shortly where you can go if you would like to explore Pamela's program a little bit more. You can head on over to theofferaccelerator.com and you can continue to have a conversation with her and see if her program is right for you, which, you know, I'm sure after today's show you will love to continue that conversation. So when we're building those sorts of things, Pamela, and we've talked, you know, you alluded to this just a few minutes ago, you know, we try to do this without necessarily spending a whole lot of money on ads. So what would be your number one way to enable people to attract the right type of people into their programs and into their offer without having to spend a lot of money on advertising?
I wish I had an off-the-shelf thing that is like, this is the solution that works for everyone. But again, we got to go back to my analogy of my massive toolbox, right? And the analogy of that magic alchemy of the person I'm coaching, the audience, the topic they're coaching on. So in some cases, people are looking for their clients on LinkedIn. In some cases, they're looking on Facebook. In some cases, they start a podcast. In some cases, they are literally taking their phones and looking through their contact list and contacting people individually. So it's very dependent on the person. The one qualification that I do ask for when somebody comes to my program is that they have already built an audience of contact. So not necessarily an audience, I shouldn't say audience. They already have a network. So either it's a personal network of people like on their phones, or they are someone like you. A lot of times I do these podcast interviews and the camera goes off and the host says to me, you know, I actually really need your offer because I've never figured out something to sell to my audience. So that's something that happens a lot. People have built an audience around a platform that they've spent a lot of effort developing, but they don't actually have something higher value to sell to that audience. And there are people in that audience who want to engage with you at that level, I guarantee. So, but they've never, you know, tried to develop something for that audience. They have the lower ticket offers maybe, but nothing really high value. So I do ask that people have, and the reason that I ask that they have a group gathered, this is how I talk about, like, you need to have gathered a group around you. And that could be on your podcast, it could be on your YouTube channel, it might be again on your contacts list, but you need to have a group gathered because we are going to create a test offer in 30 days. And you need to have some people to offer that test offer to. So you need to show up with those people so that we can reach out to them and offer them your test offer. But as far as like the best way to find people, I do that on a case-by-case basis. That is part of the marketing that we work on developing in the second part of the program once we've kind of nailed down what the offer will be.
So everything's very tailored and custom designed to the individual and to their, you know, their set of unique circumstances, their unique skills and experience, and how they want to build their business. And I think that is a wonderful way to do it. I want to make sure that today, I'm just going to pop this up on the screen, that everybody knows where to go and get more of Pamela. So if you head on over to www.pamela, Pamela Wilson.com, you'll be able to reach out to Pamela and have a further conversation with her. So I've just popped that up on the screen for everybody, and you can check out the number of programs that she has there. The program that she's spoken about today, the Accelerator program, really does wrap up a lot of what we've spoken about today and takes that whole process to the next level. You'll get an opportunity to work with her and build your test offer, your custom offer, your initial offer, however, your pilot offer, whatever it is that you want to call it. You'll be able to do that in the first 30 days and really test everything to make sure that you're moving forward in the right direction. So Pamela, I want to say thank you very much for being an amazing guest and joining us on the Unlock Show today. Absolutely love this topic. We could talk about it all day, probably for many, many episodes. And I would dearly love to see as many people as possible take you up on your offer and be able to create their own online programs that then are able to, they can create their lifestyle around that, which is a wonderful way to be able to live life, in my opinion. Is there anything that you would like to add as some last, parting comments, or any pieces of advice that you would like to add to everybody before we call today's show a wrap?
Yeah, I think the last thing I would just give as a piece of advice is I came from the offline world. I was a publication designer, so I was designing magazines and newspapers, ink on paper, right? Tangible objects. And if you made a mistake in that world, if you left an address off, or the phone number had a typo, everything was ruined and you had to do it all over again. And it could be tens of thousands of dollars to correct an error. In the online space, and one of the best things about it, that you don't have to worry so much about errors being permanent, right? So everything is kind of iterative. And one of my favorite sayings, and I didn't invent this, but it's one of my favorite things to say, is digital ink is never dry. And what that means is the online space is a beautiful playground where you can experiment with ideas, you can iterate to make them better over time. They may not be perfect right out of the gate, but that's really wonderful because you have an opportunity to just make them better in a way that is very kind of low risk to you and to your clients. So I would encourage anyone watching or listening to just embrace that. It's one of the best things about having an online business. And it can seem intimidating, but it's really a wonderful thing once you embrace it.
Great piece of advice. Just get out there, get it done. It's not permanent. You can, in this space, you can be very nimble. We can be quick. We can make decisions fast, and you can change things really, really quickly. So there you go, guys. Just get out there and get it done. I want to say to everybody, just letting you guys know, don't forget, the Unlock show goes live twice a week, 10 a.m. Brisbane time on Wednesdays and also on Fridays. So tune in this Friday. We'll be talking more about, podcasting. We'll be talking about creating your own show, online business, and even writing your own book to round out your entire business ecosystem, which I absolutely love to talk about with everybody. So I'll see you guys again this Friday. But for now, thank you very much for joining in. It's fantastic to have you guys as listeners and viewers of the Unlock show. I appreciate you guys very much. And I'm going to see you guys again this Friday. So as I always say, as we tune out on the show, you need to go and live your life unlocked. Why? Because there is just no other way. Thanks, guys. See you again soon. Bye for now.